Commissioner Bunker, we do have a quorum now if you want to get the meeting started.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everybody. So we have 3 items on the agenda. 2 of them will go to the full commission. 1 just requires a vote. So the first order of business is approval of the minutes from the last meeting. Is there any additions to the minutes or questions about the minutes? If not, is there a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting?
I'll move to approve.
A second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of approving the minutes from the last meeting, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Anybody opposed? Great. The minutes are approved.
Commissioner Bunker, if I could do a quick roll call just to announce the commissioners that are on the meeting before we move on to the first agenda item, that'd be great.
Sure.
Thank you. So we have yourself, Commissioner Bunker. Also joining us, we have Commissioner Buddy Hance, Commissioner Herb Cornwell, Commissioner Hewitt, Commissioner McFall, Commissioner Porter. Are there any other commissioners who have joined that I may have missed? Commissioner Mulkey. And Jody is not a commissioner. Okay, I think we have everyone. Thank you.
Okay. So the first item of the agenda is Anne Arundel County Galesville Historic Market Growth Allocation. So we'll have a staff presentation.
Morning, Jennifer Esposito here again to present the growth allocation request for the Galesville market on the behalf of Anne Arundel County. I'm just going to get my presentation in presentation mode. Once I'm in presentation mode, I will not be able to see you, so please just let me know if you're having a trouble seeing my screen. And before I begin, I just want to recognize that we have Kelly Krenitz here representing the county in case the commissioners have any questions that I am unable to answer. Can you see my screen okay? Or
Yes.
not at the beginning? Sorry. There we go. You can see my presentation okay?
Yep.
Perfect.
Yes.
So again, we're presenting the Galesville growth allocation request on the behalf of the county. Galesville sits south of Annapolis and sits south of Annapolis and Anne Arundel County on the West River. Here below is a close-up. The town has one main street that goes all the way down to the water, and the population, they have a population of around 500 from primarily year-round residents. So in September of this year, Anne Arundel County passed Bill 6523 to approve the proposed growth allocation to change the designation of 0.561 acres of limited development area to intensely development area to allow for the infill redevelopment of a legally non-conforming parcel that is zoned for commercial use. And this is the area in hatching that you see on the screen here. Commission staff recommends concurrence with the chair's determination to process this request as a refinement and to approve the growth allocation request as proposed. Before I get into the proposal, just to give a little bit of background of Galesville, it was established in 1652. It's actually considered the birth place of Quakerism in Maryland, and the West River Landing was once an official port of call known as the exporting importing hub. It was an important port for Maryland commerce. The town has several historic structures to note. The one you see here is actually the impetus behind the growth allocation request before you today. Formerly known as the Francis Kolb General Store, it opened for business in the mid-1800s, and it was operated by the same family for over 100 years. It is believed to be the second oldest structure in town, and the ownership vision of the site is to revitalize and develop the property to add value to the Galesville commercial area of Main Street, and once revitalized, to operate as a nonprofit community-owned commercial space filling the community needs, for example, a market, house, coffee bar, gathering place, and potentially renting limited ancillary spaces. The existing conditions, the site is a 1.67 acre site that is currently all designated as limited development area. It is split zoning. One portion of the site is commercial use zoned, and the remaining portion, this long sliver here, is R2 zone, which is residential. It is improved with a historic structure, one-story wood frame building, a pump house, an accessory building, 2 sheds, walkways, and gravel parkways, and gravel parking. Sorry about that. And just to kind of show you from Google Maps, just to give you a visual what the site looks like on the ground. This is the historic property and the other building on the commercial site that is run by Antique, an antique shop. And this is off of Main Street on the side road, looking at the residential portion of the site and looking back to Main Street. But there's currently no immediate proposal for the site. The property owner is in the process of subdividing the parcel into 2 lots. One, the 5.6 acre commercially zoned lot that's subject to this growth allocation, and the remaining part, it would be 1.11 acre residential zone lot. The intention is to sell the residential zone lot to raise funds to restore the historic market. And when redevelopment is proposed, the site must comply with intensely developed area development standards. So this top one is just showing kind of existing conditions, and below and a general idea of what the commercial zone property would look like, and the remaining portion of being residential. With growth allocations, we do agency coordination and discuss the development standards that would be applied. Other than the buffer on the residential portion of the site, there are no habitat protection areas as it relates to the commercial zoned parcel that's subject to this growth allocation. There are also no impacts to rare, threatened, or endangered species. There are no impacts to tidal or non-tidal wetlands. And again, any proposal for the redevelopment of the 0.561 acre lot will require 10% phosphorus reduction and local sediment and erosion control practices. I also completed a coastal vulnerability assessment on the site using various state data layers, including Coastal Atlas, which is what you see here. It's important to note the site in context of the surrounding area, as well as a town relatively susceptible to coastal hazard and sea level rise. The growth allocation site is slightly elevated compared to the surrounding waterfront parcels. And as I go through the various mapping tools, just keep in mind that the site is likely to be impacted with the highest range of sea level rise and more intense storm events. Also, when we're reviewing the maps, which were attached as a staff report, or attached to the staff report, the proposal for the site is for infill redevelopment to help rehab and maintain the existing historic structure. So what you see here is the different visuals for sea level rise vulnerability. The blue outline is the parcel that we're talking about for the growth allocation. For 0 to 2 feet, it is not impacted and only gets impacted to 5 and 10 foot elevations. But just to provide you with a reference, the mid-level scenario for narrow and sea level rise predictions, note for 2050, it is at 1.4 feet, and for 2100, it's at 3.7 feet. So even with the mid-level scenario, the site is outside of that range. There are also no wetland adaptation areas on the site, but the site could be affected by a storm surge category 3 or higher, which all of Galesville will also be in. For growth allocation, Natural Resources Article Section 8 1808.1C requires for the commission to consider or to ensure that the growth allocation meets certain standards. There are several standards. However, with this particular growth allocation, only the three that are summarized and highlighted in red before you are applicable. One states that new IDAs required to be at least 20 acres, unless the local jurisdiction has proposed and the commission has approved alternative standards to allow for IDAs to be less than 20 acres in size. Anne Arundel County included alternative standards into their code in January of this year, for which the commission has approved. And those standards state that a new IDA may be less than 20 acres, provided that that area to receive the growth allocation allows for the redevelopment of the existing commercial use, which this one does, allows for the land use to be consistent with the county's general development plan, which it is, and supports the established character of the community, provides for suitable infill development, and provides for the preservation of existing community assets, which this does. The county found that this proposal is consistent with the aforementioned alternative standards. The second standard that is applicable to this particular growth allocation is that a new IDA be adjacent to existing LDA, and this one is. And lastly, that the new IDA minimizes habitat protection area impacts and maximizes water quality and habitats in the RCA. There are no habitat protection area is located on site, and the site is currently LDA, not RCA, but when the site is redeveloped, it will be required to meet stormwater requirements. In addition to the growth allocation standards that have to be met, the commission is required to consider several factors. The factors are outlined in detail on page 4 of 8 of my staff report, but I'll briefly cover a few factors and summarize the county's responses to those factors. In addition, I reached out to state agency representatives on the commission for input regarding the growth allocation request in response to the factors that shall be considered. Department of Housing and Community Development had no comments at this time. Maryland Department of Ag had no concerns with this request. Maryland Department of the Environment, Department of Natural Resources, Maryland Department of Commerce, and Maryland Department of Planning provided input, and their comments were noted under each applicable factor within the staff report. Again, I will add those comments and kind of paraphrase those briefly. One of the first factors is that the commission must consider that the proposal is consistent with the local's comprehensive plan. Anne Arundel County found that this proposal to be consistent with the components of the county's comprehensive plan, especially under the neighborhood preservation destination, which includes goals to emphasize the importance of protecting and preserving historic resources. Maryland Department of Planning found that this request to be consistent with the county's plan in several areas, again, listed in detail in the staff report. Additionally, the commission should consider that new IDAs be served by public wastewater system, have an allowed average density of at least 3.5 units per acre, to be located in a priority funding area if greater than 20 acres, and have a demonstrable economic benefit to the area. The area is served by public wastewater system. It is for a commercial use, so the sub B is not applicable because that's for residential density. To be located, it is located in a priority funding area, but it is less than 20 acres. And the county's response to sub D is that the approval of this growth application will support the overall preservation of the historic resources with the goal to make the site a viable commercial use for the community. Maryland Department of Commerce commented that the growth allocation will allow the historic property to be brought back to its formal use as a local retail store and gathering place, noting that it would be a positive economic benefit to the area. A few more factors. One, to consider the environmental impacts associated with wastewater and stormwater management practices and wastewater and stormwater discharges to tidal waters. The county noted that there are no proposed discharges from wastewater, stormwater to tidal waters. DNR did provide guidance on future stormwater practices to be designed to reflect site risks related to flooding and inundation to protect water quality and reduce flood risk, noting that it would be desirable for any practice to treat the 100-year flood event. And MDE provided details as it relates to obtaining a state wetland license for the creation of any new stormwater discharges to tidal wetlands or waters. The last factor that I want to go over is that the commission considers environmental impacts associated with the location in coastal hazard areas or increased risk for severe flooding attributable to the proposed development. The county just noted that it's not located within a FEMA floodplain. And to summarize and paraphrase the comments provided by DNR and the Maryland Department of Planning, given the likelihood that this site may be vulnerable to sea level rise and other coastal hazards, the redevelopment should take this into consideration and potentially elevate the structures to help mitigate future impacts. And I think it's again important to keep in mind that most of the town will be susceptible to future coastal hazards, and that the overall intent of this growth allocation is to allow for the redevelopment of an existing historic structure. And with that, staff recommendation for this growth allocation request is concurrence with the chair's determination of the refinement and approval of this growth allocation to change the 0.561 acres from limited development area to intensely developed area as proposed. And with that, I will turn it back to Chair Bunker, Subcommittee Chair Bunker, for any questions.
Any questions of staff about the request for growth allocation? I just have one question. I noticed in the approval by Anne Arundel County of the growth allocation that there's no requirement that the historic structure be kept and maintained. I have no doubt that's the intent, but there's nothing in the approval that requires them to maintain the historic structure.
It's currently on the historic registry, so that's the requirement for the retention of the structure. It's part of the reason the community stepped in. It had been for sale for years, and because of those restrictions, it was difficult to sell. So it was actually subject to demo by neglect. The family stopped caring for it because if it fell down, you could do whatever you wanted to the property. You just couldn't do it yourself. So the community came up with this idea, and they're working very closely with our cultural resources department to make sure that all of the historic guidelines are, are implemented with the preservation of the property.
Okay, thank you. Is there, if there's no questions, is there a motion to approve the request or the motion to approve the determination of a refinement and approve the growth allocation request?
This is Commissioner Mulkey. Make the motion.
I'm sorry, who was that?
Commissioner Mulkey.
Is there a second?
Second. Commissioner Hans.
Any other questions before we vote? All those in favor of approving the growth allocation for Anne Arundel County Galesville Historic Market, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody in opposition? The request is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is Town of Queenstown Tax Amendment for Water Dependent Facilities and Structures on Piers, Queen Anne's County.
Thank you, Commissioner Bunker, and I will just take a few minutes to pull up the presentation. Okay, good morning, everyone. Can you see the presentation on your screen now?
Yes.
All right. Once again, good morning. I'm Susan McCloof, and I'll be presenting a text amendment for the Town of Queenstown. The town of Queenstown is located in Queen Anne's County on Little Queenstown Creek and the Chester River. The town motto is Little Town on the Water. Queenstown was founded in 1707 and was the first county seat of Queen Anne's County, and the original courthouse was built in the town in 1708. You can see Queen Anne's County highlighted in red in the map of Maryland, and the Queenstown municipal boundary is outlined in red on the map on the right. So here's a close-up of the town, and again, the town boundary is indicated by the red dotted line. The town does contain all three critical area land classifications: intensely developed area, which is shown in red, limited development area shown in yellow, and the resource conservation area shown in green. The Natural Resources Article 8, 1809H allows each local jurisdiction to propose program amendments and refinements to its adopted critical area program no more than 4 times per calendar year. The town of Queenstown proposes updates to the following sections of its critical area program: Section 42, Water Dependent Facilities and Activities, and Section 43, Non-Water Dependent Projects. The text amendment incorporates recent updates to the critical area law and criteria. So as noted in the staff report, the town completed a comprehensive review of its critical area program in January 2022. And since that time, the Critical Area Commission updated COMAR 270103, Water Dependent Facilities and Activities. The proposed text amendment will update Section 42 of the local program to include those regulatory changes. The town also proposes to update Section 43 non-water dependent projects. This section has been shortened and will reference the Critical Area Commission's non-water dependent projects regulations in COMAR 270113. Because the proposed changes are consistent with the critical area law and its regulations, Commission staff recommends that the Commission concur with the Chair's determination this text amendment be processed as a refinement to the town's critical area program. And staff further recommends the Chair approve this text amendment as proposed. Well, thank you for your attention. I'll turn it back over to the Program Subcommittee Chair Bunker for any discussion.
Any questions or comments on the staff report? Hearing none, is there a motion to concur with the chair's determination that the text amendment be processed as a refinement to the town's critical areas program?
You have a motion from Commissioner Hewitt.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor of approval of the motion to concur with the chairman's determination that text amendment be processed as a refinement, say aye.
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 Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you again. So the last item on the agenda is it's Queen Anne's County Armored Storage Growth Allocation Forest Mitigation Plan and easement condition of approval. This only requires a vote of the subcommittee. This will not go on to the commission, full commission. Is there a staff report?
We did provide a memo to the subcommittee, and yes, there is a short presentation that I can go over now.
Okay.
Right. Thank you for that. And once again, I'm Susan McCloof, and I will be presenting an update regarding Condition 1 forest mitigation for the armored storage growth allocation. Joining us today are representatives from the county, Amy Moordock, Director of Planning and Zoning, and Stephanie Jones, Principal Planner, and they're here to help answer any questions you might have. So if you recall, on June 7th, 2023, the Critical Area Commission recommended approval of the armored storage growth allocation request from Queen Anne's County to reclassify 2.811 acres of limited development area to intensely developed area, and the chair accepted the commission's recommendation. You can see the location of the project just north of US 50 and south of Piney Creek Road in Chester, Queen Anne's County on the map on the left of this slide, and the growth allocation parcel is outlined in blue in the image on the right. This growth allocation was approved with conditions, and one of the conditions of approval was related to forest mitigation as detailed on the following slide. So condition 1 states mitigation for clearing forest and developed woodland shall be required at a minimum of a 1-to-1 ratio, with the exception that clearing within the 25-foot non-tidal wetland buffer shall be mitigated at a 2-to-1 ratio. The county shall submit a proposal for meeting this mitigation requirement within 90 days of critical area commission approval to the commission's program subcommittee for review and approval. So as described in the memo to the subcommittee, Queen Anne's County submitted a draft deed of critical area forest protection easement and a draft forest mitigation plan. You can see the forest mitigation plan on this slide. The property where the mitigation will be planted, which is owned by the developer of the Armored Storage Project, is located in Chester, adjacent to Good Hand Creek. It's approximately 1 mile in distance from the Armored Storage site. The 1.616 acres of proposed tree planting will provide 1-to-1 mitigation for the forest clearing and an additional 1-to-1 mitigation for clearing within the 25-foot non-tidal wetland buffer. So as you can see on the aerial image on the right on this slide, the proposed forest mitigation will be planted adjacent to existing forest. So here is the mitigation planting site, and you can see the existing forest here. Critical area staff attended a site visit on October 27th, 2023, and based on this site visit, commission staff found that the proposed mitigation plantings area is an appropriate site for planting trees. Discussion during the site visit focused on appropriate tree species for planting based on site-specific conditions, the need to monitor and manage for invasive species, and a recommendation for mowing several times per year to keep the grass in check and control competing vegetation. So based on the information submitted by the county and on the site visit, we recommend that the Critical Area Commission's Program Subcommittee approve the forest mitigation plan for the armored storage growth allocation with the following condition. Within 60 days of the date of Program Subcommittee approval, the county and property owner will submit to Commission staff, or if necessary, the Program Subcommittee, an updated forest mitigation plan for review and approval with the following changes. Replacement of the eastern red cedar and pine trees with willow oak, black gum, or other appropriate canopy species as approved by the Commission Science Advisor. Inclusion of a monitoring and maintenance plan for a minimum of 5 years that ensures replacement of dead trees and shrubs, and an allowance for mowing around planted species can occur during this period to help with survival of the planted vegetation. So thank you for your attention once again, and I'll turn it back over to the Program Subcommittee Chair Bunker for any discussion.
Any questions or comments to the staff?
Chairman Bunker, Mike Hewitt, St. Mary's County. I see we're requiring them to change out the trees from, looks like cedar, red cedar and pine trees to black gum and willow oak. It doesn't, I mean, if those trees were existing before, why wouldn't we just put those same trees back?
So if Claudia, I believe, is on the in the meeting, she can chime in. But those recommendations, those will be the planted species, and we had some concerns about the area becoming maybe a little wetter over time because it is adjacent to wetlands, and the buffer kind of dips down into the proposed planting area. So Claudia had some recommendations for species that might do better in those conditions. But Claudia, yeah, please go ahead and elaborate.
Yeah, this is Claudia. Susan stated it correctly. The site is pretty wet and it's getting wetter. And while the eastern red cedar and the pine will take some wetness, I'm recommending species that'll take even more as the site gets wetter, as sea level rise affects the property. So that's the reason for those changes. It is something that the applicant and his consultant agreed to in the field, so we just want to see it on the site plan.
Okay, I'm just wondering why we would take something that's been growing there and take it out and put something else. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Just one more thing. It doesn't mean replacement of the ones that are on site, just to further clarify. It means replacement in the list of species to be planted.
Yeah, these are the species
that
like
make sense?
Claudia
Yeah.
just said in the planting schedule. So these are the mitigation trees to be planted. We're not this is not replacing anything that's currently planted in that area.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, forgive me if I missed this, but the mitigation location, is it also in the Chester watershed or is it in the Eastern Bay watershed?
I cannot confirm right now. It's about a mile away from the site. If it's in the same watershed, I would have to look at that. I don't know if anyone from the county can confirm that right now, that it is located within the same watershed.
This is Stephanie from Queen Anne's. Give me 1 second. I'm going to look that up for you.
Thank you, Stephanie.
One more question, Susan, while that's being looked at. This is Commissioner Mulkey, and apologies, I can't find the staff report. So my question is, the ground looks as though it's agricultural cropland, if I'm correct, but I'm hearing you say maybe it's marginal in nature. Has it been in production in recent years, or because of the wetness, it is sitting fallow?
During the site visit, it was fallow. When we visited the site in October, I do not know in previous, recent years if it's been planted or not. But again, I don't know if anyone from the county has any information as, to the previous ag use of that area.
So this is Chairman Bunker. If you look on the map, the map that's included with your staff report, it looks like the mitigation site is on Good Hand Creek, which drains into Prospect Bay. So it doesn't appear to be in the Chester River watershed.
That is correct. I just looked that up.
I guess I'm
But it's
just,
close. It's very close.
I'm being new to the program subcommittee. I'm just interested in understanding a little more from the critical area planning staff if we usually look for mitigation sites to occur within the same watershed where deforestation is occurring, or is it just within the, Chesapeake Bay? I feel like maybe a question that's come up before, but I just haven't gotten clear guidance on that.
Overall, we generally look for mitigation to be planted as close to the impacts as possible. My understanding from the projects that I've worked on, it may at times be within the same watershed, but it could be outside if it's in some, close proximity. But there is not right now like a requirement that it be in that same watershed, but we certainly try to find sites, look at sites as close to where the impacts are, as possible.
Sure.
And I don't know, Claudia, if others, have anything to add to that, but that's our general, desire to do that.
Thanks.
Any other questions, comments? Is there a motion to approve the forest mitigation plan for the armored storage growth allocation with the conditions as already outlined?
To approve, Commissioner Porter.
Second?
I'll second. This is Debbie. This is Commissioner Cornwell.
Okay, we're going to vote. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? The motion to approve the forest mitigation plan goes forward. So that's all we have on our agenda. I don't know if Kate has anything else to talk to us about.
No, I do not, Commissioner Bunker. So we just have our full commission meeting at 1 p.m.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, and I'll see you guys again at 1 o'clock. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.